The topic for the day is Now, the police force is a not-for-profit organization. It is not working for making profit. Now, any non-profit organization can be evaluated based on the 3 E's, or it is known as the value for money. The first, economy. Second, efficiency. And third, effectiveness. Now, before we analyze the police force, let's have a quick understanding of the meaning of these 3 terms. Now, we will take your case itself. Now, you are studying for the ACCA exams, right? So, the first element, economy, it is concerned with getting the resources at the least possible cost. But you should not compromise on the quality also. Now, in your case, what are the resources that you are using? You are using books for your ACCA exams, right? The study text, the exam kits, etc. Now, instead of buying a new book, if you are using a second-hand book, then you would have made cost savings, right? Because that is not too expensive. The only thing that you have to ensure is the book is suited for the examination. That is, it should not have any missing pages and there should not be any additions to the syllabus, etc. So that is the meaning of without compromising on the quality. So if you can get your resources at the least possible cost without compromising on the quality, then you have scored well on the economy part. Now coming to the second E. What was the second E? It is efficiency. Now, you are also a resource, that is human resource. Now, how can you say that you are very efficient? Now, right from morning till evening, if you're only playing computer games and scrolling through Insta, then are you efficient? No, right? You have to work for your objective or you should study for your exam. If you're utilizing yourself more or your productive hours is more, then you are more efficient. Efficiency relates to the maximum utilization of the resources. And what was the finally? Effectiveness. Effectiveness means achievement of objectives. Now, what is your objective? Clearing the examination. So, if you clear the examination, you are effective. Simple, right? You've just learned the 3 E's. Now, since you've understood the meaning of the 3 terms, let's evaluate the performance of the police force. Now, we know that for any organization, there is an input which is getting converted into output. Now, these not-for-profit organizations, they are rendering services, right? So on the input side, you have the resources used. And what are the resources that they are using? They are using human resources and there are physical assets as well. Now we will take a specific case, that is evaluation of the police force. Now, what are the human resources that are being utilized by the police force? They are the policemen and also the admin staff. And what are the physical assets? Physical assets are buildings, vehicles, computers, computer software, etc. So that was the input side. Now coming to the output side. On the output side, you have the beneficiary and the objective. What do you mean by beneficiary? Beneficiary is the person who gets the service. And what do you mean by objective? Objective means the aim of that organization. So as far as the police is concerned, who is the beneficiary? The beneficiary is the public. And as for the objective, what is their main objective? Their main objective is to prevent and solve the crimes. So whenever you get a question, I want you to analyze the facts from the question in this manner. Because for every not-for-profit organization, there will be an input comprising of the resources used, which are divided into the human resources and the assets. And on the output side, you have the beneficiary and the objective of the organization. Now we will analyze the first E. What was the first E? The first E was economy. Now, economy is an input measure. That is, we don't need to be worried about the output side. So focus only on the input side. And what is it that they are looking into? Are resources the cheapest possible for the quality desired? So the resources used should be cheap and the resources should not be of a bad quality. So what are the examples? The examples are measuring the cost of staff. Now the staff is the police and the admin staff. We shouldn't give them exorbitant salaries. It should be at par with the market rate. Like the admin staff, we have to compare the salary that is paid in other organizations, like in the private sector. So the admin staff needn't be remunerated at a very high price. So economy tries to find out whether the resources are cheap and of the right quality. Now, in the case of physical assets also, whenever you are constructing or buying a building or vehicle, computer software, always look into whether the cost is the minimum, provided that the quality is not compromised. Now, let's take a very simple example. Suppose the number of police officers are 300 and the number of admin staff are 100. So what is the total number of employees? 300 plus 100 gives 400 employees in total. Now, if the staff cost on a yearly basis amounts to $16 million, then what is the average cost? The average cost per employee is 16 million, which is the total cost, divided by 400, which is 300 plus 100. That's the total number of employees. So you get, on an average, you are paying $40,000 per annum per employee. Now, if you can make any savings on this cost, then it is a positive factor as far as economy is concerned. Now, moving to the second E. What was the second E? It was efficiency. Now, in efficiency, inputs are linked to outputs. So here we have got the inputs and here we have got the outputs. If you are linking both, then that is a measure of efficiency. And the question that is to be answered is the maximum output being achieved from the resources used? That is, whether we are utilizing the resources efficiently. That is, you have to get more output from the given resources. Example, when you're trying to find out the productivity per staff, or productivity per asset. Now, what do you mean by productivity? Productivity is the output generated for 1 unit of input. So that was for a manufacturing concern. In the service sector, how do you improve the productivity? Now, the productivity in the service sector can be measured in multiple ways. One of the method is in the number of days. Say, for example, in a particular month, the admin staff can work for a total of 22 working days. And if these people work on an average for 20 days only in a month, then it means that they are not fully efficient. If they are fully efficient, they would have worked for 22 days. They wouldn't take leave. So this is how you measure productivity in the number of days. Now, you could measure productivity also by looking into the number of days that they are absent, because that's a hindrance to productivity. Now, the same ratio, you can analyze it in a different way. What is the number of days that they are absent on an average? So in this particular case, out of 22 days, they are present only for 20 days, which means that 2 days they are absent. So 2 out of 22, that is the absenteeism rate. That is also a measure of productivity. If the absenteeism rate goes up, then the efficiency is reducing because they are taking leave for more number of days. So this was the measure of productivity as far as the number of days is concerned. Now, instead of days, you could also substitute with the total working hours. So hours is also a measure of productivity. And another method of measuring productivity is to looking into the number of people served per employee. Say, for example, the number of police officers are 300 and the number of people in the public are 100,000. So one policeman is looking into the affairs of how many people on an average, or the number of people per police officer is equal to 100,000, which is the total number of people in the public, divided by the number of police officers, which is 300. So on an average, each police officer has to look into the affairs of 333 people. This is the measure of efficiency. Now, if the number of people in the public go up, say there are so many migrant workers and all, and instead of 100,000, say the number of people increases to 120,000 people. So instead of 100,000, we have here 120K. So what is the number of people per police officer? It's 120K divided by 300, which is equal to 400 people per police officer.
See, before they were looking into the affairs of 333 people. Now each police officer is looking into the affairs of 400 people, which means that they've become super police. They have become more efficient. That is, one police officer is looking into the affairs of more number of people. So this is an increase in efficiency. When the number of people catered per police officer increases, it means that they have become more efficient. Now we will look into the productivity for an asset. Say the police department has introduced a new app, a new mobile app, and this app helps the public to have a character check on their employees. Suppose they are recruiting a new domestic help or they are recruiting a new employee for their business, then immediately they can look into this mobile app and see whether there are any cases registered against this person, whether he had been convicted for an offense earlier. So all these will help the public in recruiting a new employee. Now, as a measure of efficiency of the asset, we could look into the percentage of public using the app. Say the percentage of public using the app is only 75%. Then it is not fully efficient. It will be fully efficient only if 100% of the public uses this app. That is a height of efficiency. So this is also a measure of efficiency by looking into the productivity per asset. So if you had noticed a similar feature of all the calculations that we did, we were linking the inputs with the outputs. So on one side, you have the inputs, which could either be the human resources or the physical assets. And on the other side, you have the output, which includes the beneficiary and the ultimate objective of the organization. So when you're linking the input with the output, you could either link it in numbers, like what we just did here. That is people per police officer. That is, we have compared the number of police officers with the number of people in the public. That was comparison of the numbers. Or we could also link the hours available with the resources. That is either the human resources or the assets with the hours actually used for achieving the objectives. So that could also be a link to measure the efficiency of the human resources or the physical assets. Now let's move on to the next E. What was the next E? Effectiveness.
Now, effectiveness is an output measure. That is, we are not concerned with the inputs here. We are worried only about the outputs. And the question that we have to answer is, are the objectives met? Examples, the number of crimes reported, number of crimes solved. So here, we are not linking any input and output. We are only worried about whether the objective has been achieved or not. So since input is not required, we will delete the input. Now focus only on the output. Now say the crimes reported is 5,000 for the previous year, and in the current year, it has increased to 8,000, which means that there is a 60% year-on-year increase. That is, increase is to the tune of 3,000 cases. And how did I get 60%? 3,000 divided by the crimes reported of the previous year. That is 5K. You will get an increase of 60%, which is really high. So in this particular case, can you say that the objectives have been met? Absolutely not. Because the basic objective was to prevent and solve crimes. And now what is the situation? The crimes reported have increased by 60%. So in this particular case, the police force is not effective, or it is a negative factor as far as effectiveness is concerned. Now, in order to have a firm hold of the subject, we will do a small problem.
So the details of 2 years are given. The number of policemen are 320 in the year 2022 and 300 in the year 2021. The population is 150,000 in 2022 and 100,000 in 2021. The training cost of police per annum, it's $90,000 in 2022 and $120,000 in 2021. Number of crimes reported, 6,000 in 2022 and 5,000 in 2021. Number of crimes solved, 3,000 in 2022 and 4,000 in 2021. So when you get details like this, the first thing that you have to analyze is what is the input and what is the output. Now, policemen, Policemen, as far as the police force is concerned, it is an input. So immediately write input there. And population. Population is the beneficiary. So it is the output. Now coming to the training cost of the police. Training cost of the police is an expense incurred on the input or the resource, which means that training cost is also coming on the input side. Number of crimes reported. That is actually the objective. What is the objective of the police force? The objective is to prevent and solve crimes. So it is related to the objective, or it is an output measure. Number of crimes solved, again, it is related to the objective, and hence it is an output measure. Now, what were the three E's? Economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. So first we will start with economy. Now, the training cost percentage change can be found out. The training cost percentage change is from 120,000. It has dropped to 90,000. So what is the reduction? It is 30,000, right? So the reduction as a percentage is 30,000, which is the difference between the two, divided by the training cost of the first year, or 120,000. So the change comes to 0.25 to express as a percentage, multiply by 100. So it is 25%. So we have actually made a savings on the training. So what is the performance evaluation? The performance evaluation is 25% saved on training cost, and hence it is a positive factor in terms of economy. Now moving to the second E. What is the second E? It is efficiency. Now efficiency, we are trying to link the input and the output. So police is an input, the number of police officers is an input, and the population is an output. So if you link both, that is a number of people per police officer. So that's the first measure, the population to police ratio. In the year 2022, the ratio is 150,000 divided by 320, giving a figure of 469 people per policeman. And in 2021, the population to police ratio is 100,000 divided by 300, which gives a figure of 333 per police officer. So see the difference. In the year 2021, one police officer was looking into the affairs of 333 people. And in 2022, one police officer is looking into the affairs of 469 people, which means that they have become super police or super cops, which means that their efficiency has increased. So what is a performance evaluation? You have to write that since the number of people per police officer has increased from 333 to 469, it is a positive factor as far as efficiency is concerned. Now, what is the next measure that you can take? Again, you have to link an input and an output. So the number of police officers is an input. Now we will link it to another output, number of crimes solved. So the crime solved per police, it is 3,000 divided by 320 in the year 2022, which gives a figure of 9 crimes solved per policeman. That is, each police officer is solving 9 crimes on an average. And in 2021, what is the ratio? It is 4,000 divided by 300 policemen, or it gives a figure of 13 cases per police officer. So what is a performance evaluation? Earlier, each police officer were solving 13 crimes, but now it is reduced to just 9 crimes. They've become inefficient. So your performance evaluation should be written as, since the number of crimes solved per police officer has reduced from 13 to 9, it is a negative factor. Now going to the final E, that is effectiveness. So in effectiveness, what are we supposed to do? We have to focus only on the output side or only on the objective. So the objective here is the number of crimes reported or the number of crimes solved. So the measure that we are going to calculate is the percentage of crimes solved. In the year 2022, 6,000 crimes have been reported and 3,000 have been solved. So it is a percentage of crimes which are solved. It is 3,000 divided by 6,000, or the percentage of crimes solved is 50%. And in the year 2021, the percentage of crimes solved is 4,000 divided by 5,000, or 80%. What is the performance evaluation? In the previous year, that is in the year 2021, the percentage of crime solved was 80%, but now it has reduced to 50%. So is it a positive or a negative factor? It's definitely a negative factor, right? So we write negative factor in performance evaluation. And we could also calculate another performance measure, that is percentage increase in the crimes reported. So here again, please note that we are focusing only on the output. So it has increased from 5,000 to 6,000. So what is the percentage increase? It is 1,000, which is the difference between the two, divided by the crimes reported of the first year. That is 5,000. So we get the percentage increase as 20%. That is, we are just multiplying that ratio with 100 to get the percentage. The percentage of crimes reported have increased. So again, it is a negative factor. So this was the performance evaluation as per economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. Now we have to summarize. So the final summary evaluation, what can you say? These people have saved on the training cost. They have reduced it from 120,000 to 90,000. And the number of people that is handled by a single police officer has increased from 333 to 469. But just because they don't have sufficient training and a single police officer is overloaded with people, the crime solved per police officer has reduced, which is a negative factor. So was it right to reduce the training cost by 25%? And was it right to overload the police with a more number of people? Absolutely not. And even when you see the effectiveness, they have not even achieved the objective. The primary objective of the police force is to prevent and solve crimes. The percentage of crime solved, it has dropped drastically from 80% to just 50%. And the number of crimes reported has increased by 20%. So our summary evaluation will be the reduction in training cost and the increase in the population to police ratio has adversely affected the achievement of objectives, namely reduction in crime rates and increase in the crime solving rate. So what are the suggestions? Increase the number of training sessions. Please do not make any savings on the training cost. And please increase the number of police officers so that the number of people handled by each police officer is something that they can manage. So in a nutshell, we can say that you should not focus on only one E. There should be a fine balance between the three E's. That is, economy should be looked into, efficiency should be looked into, and effectiveness should also be looked into. So whenever you get a problem, your final sentence should be focusing on one E at the expense of the others is damaging to an organization. In order to achieve good value for money, all the three E's are to be balanced, being effective in achieving objectives and doing so in an economic and efficient manner. So we have completed the evaluation of the police force and this was our summary. But the questions that can come for the examination is not only relating to the police force, right? You can be evaluated for any not-for-profit organizations. So we will have a quick look into certain other non-profit organizations so that you will be able to crack the question even if there is a scenario change. So let's look into the next scenario, a government school. Again, it's a not-for-profit organization. Always analyze the question as input and output. In the school, what are the resources which are used? As far as human resources are concerned, it is the teachers. The teachers are the main human resource. And who is the beneficiary? The beneficiary are the students. And regarding the assets, it is common to all the not-for-profit organizations. There'll be buildings, there'll be vehicles, there'll be computers, computer software, etc. And what is the objective of a school? The objective of a school is to get a good pass percentage and to give quality education to the students. Now I will show you certain performance measures. I want you to guess whether it is related to economy, efficiency, or effectiveness. So the first measure is the student-teacher ratio. So it is related to which E? Student is a part of output and teacher is a part of input. Since they are linking the input with the output, it is a measure of efficiency. The next measure, it is cost per teacher. The cost per teacher is the expenses incurred for the teacher, whether they are paying the right kind of salary, which means that they have to try to minimize the cost without compromising on the quality. Since it is an expense which is incurred on the resource or the input, it is related to economy. The next measure, the cost per student. Please note that student forms part of the output and the cost incurred. The cost incurred is always for the resources used, correct? We are linking an expense which is incurred for the input to the output. Again, linking of input and output. So what is the answer? It is related to efficiency. So see the difference? The cost per teacher, that is a cost per input, it is a measure of economy, and the cost per student, that is an output, it is a measure of efficiency. So always note this point. Now the next measure is the percentage of students achieving the target grade. Target grade, that is always part of the objective, good pass percentage, which means that it is related to effectiveness. Now let's take a quick look into one more not-for-profit organization, which is the hospital. Now in the hospital, what are the resources which are used? The human resources are the doctors or the nurses, and the beneficiary are the patients. Now for the physical assets for all the not-for-profit organizations, it is more or less the same. And what is the objective of a hospital? The objective of a hospital are many. First, prompt and quality healthcare, and there could also be a restriction on the administration cost. Restrict administration cost to 8% of the donations, because usually the donations will be limited. So if they spend a lot on administration costs, then they will not have sufficient funds for important purposes like for buying medicines, medical equipments, etc. So usually for hospital, there is a cap on the administration cost, which forms part of their objective. And another objective could be reduced death rates. Death rate, another name, mortality rate. So all these are objectives of a hospital. Now we will go to the measure. Occupancy rates of the hospital. What kind of a measure is this? Occupancy rate. Occupancy rate means the buildings or the beds which are used in the hospital, it is not fully utilized. So we are actually linking the buildings or the number of beds available in the hospital with an output, that is the number of patients. So it is a measure of efficiency. That is, we are looking into how well the physical assets are being utilized. The next measure is the cost per patient. Cost is related to the resources and patient is an output figure. So we are linking an input with an output, just like we saw cost per student. So it is related to efficiency. Whenever you are linking an input to an output, it is always efficiency. Now, the survival rate in operation. The basic objective is to give quality healthcare and to reduce the death rate. So the survival rate in the operation is a measure of effectiveness. The next measure is patient readmission rate with the same illness. Patient readmission rate, that is, one person is getting treated and they are going home, and maybe after a few days they are again coming back saying that, I have the same sickness. So are these people effective? No, they are not providing quality health care. So again, it is a measure of effectiveness. Now, all the not-for-profit organizations, they encounter a lot of problems. Let's take a look at the problems encountered by not-for-profit organizations. The first problem is non-quantifiable objective. It is not quantifiable, right? Since the objective is not profit motive, but social welfare, it becomes difficult to measure the same. We cannot measure it. If it is profit, we can immediately measure. There is an increase in profit. Yes, they are good. But for social welfare, how can you decide on the quality of healthcare in hospital? It is a little subjective. Or the quality of education. It is not as easy to evaluate like we are evaluating a profit-oriented organization.
And the second problem is multiple and conflicting objectives. Now, for not-for-profit organizations, they've got many stakeholders. What do you mean by stakeholders? Stakeholders are those people who are interested in the organization. It could be the donors, it could be the management, the government, employees, etc. So what do the donors want? Donors want the entire amount to be spent on social welfare. And the management want to set apart some amount for administration, promotions, etc. And the government may want to spend for suiting their political interests. And employees want job satisfaction, which may not be available in not-for-profit organization. So see, there is multiple and conflicting objectives in a not-for-profit organization. So we can say that there is no goal congruence. What do you mean by congruence? Congruence is agreement. There is no goal congruence between the stakeholders. So what can be done? We have to prioritize or compromise certain objectives. We cannot achieve all the objectives, or we cannot satisfy all the stakeholders. So whatever is the need of the hour, we should decide accordingly. And the last problem is fixed budget. Now, all the not-for-profit organizations, they have a fixed budget. So it results in capital rationing problem. What do you mean by capital rationing? Capital rationing means allocating the scarce capital among various uses, depending on the need of the hour. For example, in a hospital, we have to decide whether to allocate the limited surgical resources to expensive organ transplants or to more routine hip or knee joint replacements. So they've got limited capital. They cannot spend the entire amount on expensive organ transplants, or they cannot spend the entire amount for hip or knee joint replacement. So basically, you're allocating the limited funds among the different uses based on the need of the hour. So fixed budget is a problem that is encountered by not-for-profit organizations. So that's it about not-for-profit organizations. Stay tuned for the recap ahead.